السلام عليكم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. What is living? How do we define living? Sometimes defining something may be difficult or may be philosophical, but the noble Qur'an has simplified it. The difference between a dead body and a live body is that the live body can feel its existence, understand its state of being and surroundings. A piece of rock does not feel itself or does not realize its existence. A living body can separate itself from others and feel independent of others, at the same time aware of itself. I am, hence I exist. A living body establishes connections with others, be it a living thing or not. Living bodies consume or produce things and make connections, even trees or plants, in order to nourish. When they run their roots in the soil under the ground, as they encounter an obstacle like a piece of rock, they try to go through it. And when they realize they can't, they go around it in order to reach the moisture or to water. Now, a living thing who can feel its existence is considered an animal, a live creature, and considers itself separated from the trees and the lifeless things. However, this type of living is common between the animals and humans. They both feel their existence. They realize their existence, connect with others. They both consume food, water, oxygen. They both have needs, and they both procreate. Even a baby feels its existence, and when, for example, given a shot with needles, it feels it and reacts with crying. However, this is a life we humans and animals have in common. This is not a living we should be seeking. It is a living dictated by the nature. A human being has another living in addition to this natural living, and that is his intellectual life. A living based on his aql, where there are issues like right and wrong, good and bad, truth and falsehood, justice and injustice. These are all considered. For an animal, right and wrong does not exist. A horse sticks his head in a trough to eat, whether it is his own or another horse's trough. He does not care which horse it belongs to. Whether the trough is his or belongs to another horse does not even cross his mind. This kind of thoughts and decisions belong to the world of humans. On the basis of our aql, intellect, we consider what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is false, what is decent, what is not. But animals follow their instinct. Therefore, as humans, if we don't consider what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is false, then we are no different than animals who operate based on their instincts. In other words, we will be leading an animal-like life. How do we rise above our animal instincts? We appeal to our intellect, compare and contrast. Only through comparison one realizes the value of one thing over the other. This is false, that is true, this is wrong, that is right, and so on. You observe both and then compare. This is why the Qur'an says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, فبشر عبادي الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب. Therefore, give good news to my servants, those who listen to the word and follow the best thereof. Those are the ones whom Allah has guided, and those are the ones endowed with understanding. Chapter 39, verses 18 and 19. These are the real servants of God who will listen to the words, seek the best, the truth, and the good. It all starts from the fact we feel our existence, realize our existence to the point we compare, contrast, and analyze. As Qur'an says, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ بَصِيرَةٌ. Nay, people are well aware of themselves. They are witnesses against their own souls, their own selves. This ta at the end of basira is for the emphasis, meaning insan can see himself very well, is well aware of himself. Otherwise, he would be just like an animal or a piece of rock. So from there, his living continues until he gets to his intellectual life, where he emerges as a decision maker, as he is presented with a choice. He makes a decision based on a choice that was presented to him. He looks at all that is presented, he analyzes it, and then selects based on his intellect. Among the deeds, a'mal, he chooses one, not all of them. الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He who created death and life so that he may try, test which of you is best in deed, in conduct. Chapter 67, verse 2. To try, to test, means to choose, means free will, to select. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Therefore, this is humanity of humans as it emerges. Otherwise, on the basic instinct level, before graduating to human level, we're all animals. At the best, we breathe, we eat, we sleep, we procreate, etc., just like animals. Now, we should examine these selections like the good from bad, right from wrong, which in a man are the criterion or basis for his humanity. How do they relate to one of the most important things in life? Well, does one who studies years and becomes a great chemist or mathematician or a physicist or a philosopher reach to a point of completion, kamal, that God intended for him to reach? Not necessarily. It is true that he has gained some knowledge of physical nature, but because he did not seek the divine goal, he has not reached the point of kamal or completion. Why did you go and get a higher education? Well, to get a degree. To do what? To reach, to teach, to reach a goal where I can teach or get a job so I can receive a paycheck and be able to buy food and housing and to provide for myself and satisfy my wants and desires. Well then, if that is the case, you're basically feeding your animal instincts, same way as the animal does. He does not even have to go through school or get a degree. The final goal comes back to satisfying your instinct. All of that done to satisfy your instinct. Because in your gaining knowledge, there is no higher goal, one that is divine, one that is above and beyond the material. Therefore, you are a materialistic being. Now, That horse satisfies himself in one way through his instinct, and you do it in another way by establishing your intellect as a basis to circle back to your basic instinct. Your education is to serve a material purpose, to get a paycheck and make provisions and comfort for yourself. And that's it. Therefore, if man does not strive to reach a divine goal in his life, one beyond the physical needs, he has not reached his humanity. And he circles back eventually to his animalistic instincts. An animal does it even easier without the pain of going through hardship, studying, schooling, etc., etc. Allahu Akbar. It is so amazing that one should neglect such an obvious and clear point. Many scholars and scientists who are authorities in their field neglect this. Neglect having a divine goal, one that is above and beyond material. But the one who wants to get closer to his Creator is willing to go beyond the material and unwilling to commit any injustice or wrongdoing for the sake of material gains. Those who are close to Allah, like the companions of Prophet, are willing to sacrifice. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَسَاسَةٌ, and prefer them above themselves, even though they themselves have a need. 59:9. They put others ahead of themselves, even though they may have needs of their own. Along the same lines, Prophet, peace be upon him, said that in order for someone to reach his kamal, completion, he must overlook and forgive those who have wronged him, when in fact he has the power to take revenge, but he forgives. Or if he's asked to give to those who didn't give him when he was in need, he gives. If one takes revenge, he has satisfied his anger, or he has basically taken a revenge on the basis of his animal instincts. However, if one looks the other way and forgives, that is going beyond his animalistic instinct and reaching the peak of his humanity. Furthermore, he does not make that person feel obliged or in debt to him. I asked to borrow $1,000 from you last year and you did not give it to me. Now that you need money, I will give it to you. At the same time, you do not remind them or make them feel in debt to you. You have now entered the state of humanity. Now, when one enters such humanity, such a kamal, he needs an authority, marja', or a source to return to, a reference. Otherwise, why would a person forego his interest, sacrifice his interest? For what? He has to believe in something above and beyond the material, something divine, so that such belief manifests itself in his a'mal, deeds, and his character. Therefore, one of faith's roles is to play down the material world and keep it down and turn man's focus to that which is above the material world. This is not to say that we should abandon the material world. In fact, we should reach to the point we are financially secure, so we depend on no one's help. It is rather to bring in focus that there are other meaningful things in life that are above the material. But at the same time, to be able to live among people, deal with them. However, not go along with anything that may be immoral or considered as bad behavior. interconnect with people and our surrounding, but with open eyes, and not get mixed or preoccupied with something that is of little or no long-term benefit to us, as if there's no tomorrow. Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib said about such folks, their heart is with Allah and their deed is with people. Means they work with people, interact with people, but their heart is with Allah. Whatever they do to please Allah. Their Creator is their top priority. In their whole being, there is a divine goal they are trying to achieve, as opposed to those who don't have such a divine goal. Consequently, their deeds of these two different people, their a'mals, will be different. Do not pretend, oh, he's a disbeliever, I'm a believer, a Muslim, but when it comes to a'mal, deeds, he's ahead of me. Then what kind of a Muslim am I? If I'm a true believer, then it should show in my deeds, my interactions, and my behavior. This shows we have been given a great responsibility. One who claims to be a believer and claims to have connection with the divine being may claim to be above being an animal. However, his attitude shows he actually lives by his animalistic behavior. Therefore, he's pretending. Qur'an says about these people, يَقُولُونَ بِأَلْسِنَتِهِمْ مَا لَيْسَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ, and they say with their tongues what is not in their heart. Chapter 48, verse 11. This is why we should not be fooled by what people might claim. So and so says such and such. No. We have to see his a'mal, his deeds, his behavior. That is the criterion, yardstick. That is why when Jews claimed and boasted that they were the chosen people, and Muslims claimed and boasted that they had the final revelation and this salvation was theirs, Qur'an responds, ليس بأمانيكم ولا أماني أهل الكتاب من يعمل سوءا يجز به ولا يجد له من دون الله وليا ولا نصيرا. It will not be in accordance with your wishes, nor the wishes of the people of the book. Whosoever does evil deed shall be recompensated for it, and will not find beside Allah any protector or helper. Chapter 4, verse 123. One has to aim for salvation and paradise by not just correct belief, but also good, righteous deeds. The criterion is not claims, but deeds, actions. Now, according to this criterion that Qur'an puts forth, if we were to count the number of true Muslims, how many do you think we would find? And how far others have gone ahead of us? Others who do not claim to be Muslim often get ahead of us in their deeds, good deeds, which is a shame for us Muslims. The fact is, we must aim for these divine criterion and standards, some of which we talked about earlier, like mercy, forgiveness, leniency, and being humble. We all know about Prophet's leniency and mercy. How many times, not just the Prophet himself, but his companions, overlooked people's, even disbelievers' evil conduct and forgave them. Verses of Qur'an were revealed about it. That is what divine goal is. That which is above and beyond the material needs and desires. Some people seek it, aim it, and go after it. Some people don't seek it, don't want it, or even know about it. They don't even know about it. Hence, live a small life that is limited to material things in this life. Hence, often end up with a big zero when they leave this world. And then there are those who come across divine goals and values by simple curiosity. Point in case. Here in the Western world, people live a comfortable and often luxurious life compared to most other parts of the world. It is not unusual to see families of 4 or 5 to have houses with multiple rooms, one for each kid, perhaps multiple TVs, one in each room, multiple cars, refrigerator full of food. Some have the second refrigerator or freezer in the garage, etc., etc. And then more affluent families with bigger houses and more expensive cars, boats, campers, and so on. All in all, people in the West have much more comfortable lives than people in the rest of the world. Nevertheless, we see many of them feel void, emptiness in their lives, hence seek the meaning of life in other things, such as spirituality, as they look inward. They ask themselves, then what? As they look inward, they ask themselves, then what? What is waiting for me at the end? We achieved some success in our material life. We fed ourselves, our egos, our physical needs. Now that we're full, what is next? What were we created for? Why are we here? These type of questions have caused many Westerners, especially the intellectuals, to turn to spirituality, turn to Buddhism, turn to Islam, turn to religions that look inward, ma'naviyat, and talk about spirituality. So in the West, having their stomach full and having fulfilled all their physical needs causes them to ask those questions and consequently seek spirituality. Whereas in the East, where majority of population is poor and struggling to make just the ends meet and grappling with socioeconomic problems, people seek refuge to God and turn spiritual out of sheer needs for basic things like hunger, thirst, poverty. So the reason is the set of key questions that are fundamental. Where I came from, what am I here for, and where am I going? No one with a sound mind can ignore these questions. A person who downplays or just ignores these questions and keeps saying, let's just satisfy our stomach and fulfill our desires and don't worry about what's next. He's basically acknowledging that he is living an animal-like life. However, one who does not ignore these key questions, all of which have been considered by intellectuals in all generations of the past, well, he should be seeking answers, studying, researching, so he's not deceived, he's not at loss in the end. When we want to buy something as simple as a pair of shoes or suit, we go to multiple stores and try out different ones to make sure we get the one that meets our requirement on the cost, size, color, style, and so on. we spend even more time to buy a car or a house. However, for these essential questions that have to do with our entire existence, we do not want to spend even a short period to find out, to contemplate. What is next? Where am I going? What am I supposed to do in order to prepare for that destination? These are all questions that one comes across when he seeks the divine, Qudsi goals in life. Now, people approach it different ways. Most often, they tend to imitate, but merely following and copying others often does not provide the answer. I repeat, imitating, merely following and copying others often does not provide the answers. They get attracted by some famous personality, celebrity, scholar, or speaker. I'm a follower of so-and-so speaker, so-and-so professor, so-and-so philosopher. I follow Marx or Lenin or Bertrand Russell or Luther. Qur'an simplifies all this as it says, do not be deceived by personalities, names, or titles. The criterion, the yardstick is reason, rationale, proof. قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Say, bring forth your proof, your argument, if you're telling the truth. Chapter 27, verse 64. The criterion is reason, the proof, not the person. So-and-so astrophysicist said God does not exist, so that must be true, and we should follow him. These poor souls do not think that the question of whether God exists or not is not a matter that is addressed by astrophysics or physics, so that a set of formulas provide the answer. This is a matter of intellect, aql, and philosophy. Hence, that famous professor may be top-notch in physics, but that does not necessarily make him an expert in other intellectual fields, such as philosophy of God's existence. Otherwise, if God's existence was, rejected through a set of formulas and theories, then every astrophysicist or physicist in the world would be atheist. As we know, many of them do believe in God and God's existence. For example, in The World as I See It, an essay by Einstein, he says, quote, "The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science. Whoever does not know it and can no longer wonder, no longer marvel, is as good as dead, and his eyes are dimmed. It was the experience of mystery, even if mixed with fear, that engendered religion. A knowledge of the existence of something we cannot penetrate, our perceptions of the profoundest reason and the most radiant beauty, which only in their most primitive form is accessible to our mind, it is this knowledge and this emotion that constitutes true religiosity. In this sense, I am a deeply religious man. I'm satisfied with the mystery of life's eternity and with a knowledge, a sense of the marvelous structure of existence, as well as the humble attempt to understand even a tiny portion of the reason that manifests itself in nature. What I think of God, it is the certainty in thought that there exists this supreme intellectual being which is beyond our imagination, comparisons, and conjecture. Unquote. That was what was written, an essay written by Einstein. The world as I see it. So there are then some people who become followers and imitate or follow such and such philosopher, clergy, priest, scientist, bishop, saint, etc., etc., etc. Qur'an says none of these are criterion. Criterion is proof and reason for something to be true. قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Say, bring forth your proof, your argument, if you're telling the truth. You can be sure that nothing, no book or person has provided the answers and spelled out the answers like Qur'an has. At any case, these were two extremes where people turn to spirituality to get their key questions answered. And in the process, some find the divine goal and what their mission is in this short journey called life. And in the process, they find what is the real living and how to live with peaceful heart while achieving that divine goal. They will realize while we scramble to satisfy our hunger and our thirst and all our physical needs, there's also a need to satisfy our hearts and spirit by having such divine goals, Qudsi goals. By the way, further perspective of Qur'an is that in the Qur'an, life in this world is an inseparable part of a continuum, a unified whole, which is life, death, then life again. I repeat, life, death, then life again, which gives our life a context and relevance. In this context, the life of the individual is made meaningful and enriched when it is full of good works. Amila salih. Life in this world leads to the afterlife, a belief which is fundamental in the Qur'an. That is, the afterlife is not treated in the Qur'an in a separate chapter or as something on its own, but always in relation to life in this world. Linguistically, it is not possible in the Qur'an to talk about this life without semantic reference to the next life, since every term used for each is comparative with the other. Therefore, the terms like al-awla and al-akhirah, the first and the last life, ad-dunya and al-akhirah, the nearer and the farther life, neither has a name specific to itself or independent of the other. Consequently, the frequency of the terms, the number of times in the Qur'an is the same for both. In the case of dunya and akhirah, each appears 115 times in the Qur'an. There is a reference to one aspect or another of the afterlife on almost every single page of the Qur'an, directly or indirectly. This follows from the fact that belief in the afterlife is an article of faith which has a bearing on every aspect of the present life and manifests itself in the discussion of the creed, the rituals, the ethics, and the laws of Islam. Now that we have talked about true living with divine goals and spirituality in this life, it is perhaps noteworthy to talk briefly, just briefly, about death, which comes suddenly and ends this life. Qur'an has an amazing way of describing death. As it says in Surah Al-Jum'ah, قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. Say, indeed, death is that which you are running away from. It will then come to meet you. Then you shall be returned to the knower of all unseen and the visible, and he will let you know all that you have done. Chapter 62, verse 8. The word tafirrun literally means escaping or running away. Here, running away from death. And then it uses the term mulaqikum. It will meet you face to face. You can picture it this way. Imagine you're running away from a wild animal like a tiger. You keep running and looking back, and he's chasing behind you. All of a sudden, you see him appear right in front of you, coming to meet you face to face. That is how the Qur'an describes death. So we need to be prepared for that day. A true living with a divine goal in mind, one that is beyond the needs of this world, will prepare us for such day that is sure to come and meet us. One of the descriptions Qur'an gives about the people who did not prepare, people who did not prepare for that day, is in Surah Sajda, chapter 32, verse 12. وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ نَاكِسُوا رُؤُوسَهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ رَبَّنَا أَبْصَرْنَا وَسَمِعْنَا فَارْجِعْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا إِنَّا مُوقِنُونَ. If you could only see when the guilty, the sinner, lower their heads, hang down their heads before their Lord and say, "Our Lord, we have now seen and heard, so send us back. We will do good deeds. Surely now we are certain." We ask Allah to guide us so we're not among mujrimun, the guilty. May Allah help us be prepared for that day with many good deeds instead. And we ask Allah to help us have a divine goal in this life so we can reach our humanity and our kamal. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. والسلام على من اتبع الهدى.